It's Platt, and today we head to Spain. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So today the particular beer we're going to try is Estrella Galicia. This beer is produced by Hijos de Rivera Brewing in Alcoruna, Galicia, Spain. Hopefully I did not butcher that too bad. The brewery was founded by a gentleman named Jose Maria Rivera Corral in 1906. Apparently Jose had gone over to Cuba and Mexico on a trip, and when he came back, decided to open the brewery. I don't think the trip necessarily, I don't think he went to Mexico to learn brewing or whatever. I just think after the trip he just decided it was time and began the process of opening a brewery in 1906. I don't believe they finally got product out to sale until 1910, but the brewery itself started in 1906. They today export beers to various parts of South America, North America, and Europe. They do over 200 million liters in sales per year, so a big brewery, but not like the big conglomerates, but definitely a player in the world market. In 1920, Ramon Rivera, the second generation, came on board and became the company's brewer. He was a classically trained brewmaster, which was rare in Spain at the time. There just weren't a lot of those, so it was definitely a key advantage to them. And it didn't take long for Ramon to really put his imprint on the brewery. The next year, in 1921, he introduced 4 new styles: a Pilsner, a Munich, a Bock, and a Doppelbock. In which, if you think about it, kind of makes sense. If someone's being trained as a brewmaster back then in Europe, they're probably going to Germany. The German influence is definitely going to come out. In 1925, they opened a beer garden next to the brewery. I guess you could say it's almost kind of like a predecessor to the modern day tap rooms, but just open-aired. In 1941 was a first. It was the only time the breweries ever closed. And Spain at the time was hit by the double whammy of World War II, but they'd also were going through a civil war, so supplies and labor were in shortage, kind of like today. 30 years later, 1971, the company switched their official logo or trademark to Estrella Galicia, what we know the beer of today. 8 years later, in 1979, they began canning their beer. That seems kind of late, especially in America, where canned beers have been around for a long time. Just my preliminary research, Europe was just a little slower to accept the canning, and especially they're more traditionalist as far as beer went, also to the styles. Even back then in America, it was canned Coors, Bud Miller, Schlitz, Pabst, those brands where I don't think anybody was in a hurry to can Chimay or some of the classic Warsteiners or beers like that. Today, the company is still 100% family owned. The fourth generation, Jose Maria Rivera, currently runs the brewery, so they've kept in the family, which always is a cool story. And lastly, for you gearheads out there, Estrella Galicia sponsors Formula One, and I think for a while they sponsored McLaren racing specifically for a while. So again, cool for you racing fans out there. Real quick, let's talk about some of their other beers. They have a small line of beers, but small, but they focus on them. They're well executed. First is the 1906 Reserva. This is a 6.5% ABV Maibach. The 1906 obviously refers to the founding of the brewery, so it's kind of like an anniversary beer that they just keep producing full time. Next is the 1906 Red Vintage. This is an 8% ABV European strong lager. This beer has a really nice, deep, reddish copper. It's aesthetically a good-looking beer, which doesn't always affect flavor, but it's just kind of nice sometimes to look, at a pretty glass of beer. And finally, the 1906 Black Koopa. This is a 7.2% ABV Dunkel. As we can tell just in these beers we talked about, again, a strong German influence. Even though they're a Spanish beer company, Germany's influence on just beer culture throughout Europe is undeniable. And again, they're probably classically trained in Germany, so kind of makes sense from the styles. They also produce a non-alcoholic beer, a gluten-free beer, a dry cider, and they have a line of bottled waters. So that's kind of their complete line. Well, before we try this particular beer, though, let's check out the stats. So today, real quick, I want to talk about beers from quote-unquote wine countries. When you talk about European beers, people kind of go to Germany, Belgium, England, but they don't think about Spain, Italy, and France. They're considered wine countries, and of course they have great heritage for wine production, sherry production, champagne, dessert wines, spumantes. 3 countries that produce unbelievably great wines, but they also produce really good beers. This is the first Spanish beer I've reviewed. I haven't done a French beer, but that is definitely coming. I believe I've done Moretti, I think Peroni too, so I've done a couple of Italian beers. I think part of people's misconception on those countries is a lot of people think, well, outside the 3 big countries, everybody's making their version of Heineken. Green bottled European lager that's slightly skunky. But that is far from the truth. In like Spain, you have Alhambra, you have Estrella Dam, which is not connected with Estrella Galicia. You have San Miguel. In France, you have Tres Monts, La Corne Black Beer. Italy, of course, Peroni, Moretti, Manobrow, I believe is another company out there. And Peroni, even though it does come in a green bottle, it's like a lager, get into some of their other beers. There's a Peroni Reserva. They produce some really nice malty, darker colored beer, fuller bodied, higher ABV, which kind of makes sense because, again, they're used to wine consumption where you're in the low teens. So probably to them folks, a 4.2% light beer just means nothing. So they probably like something a little more body, a little higher ABV, but there's some excellent beers from those countries, so don't short sell them. I remember going to a European beer festival, and I was actually more impressed with kind of the rest of Europe than the German, Belgian, English beers that have become kind of standard. Well, enough about that. Let's try this Spanish beer. All right, that pours nice, a little bit of light copper to it. Oh, good color. Oh, plenty of malt on the nose. Oh, that's real nice. Let's give her a try. Oh, that is nice. Little bit of body, not a lot. This is almost like an amped up European lager. A little more light, malt in there, a little more body. Still very drinkable, and plenty of carbonation. Does have a slight bit of that Euro funk to it, but nothing too crazy. Yeah, this is a very pleasant beer, but it's light enough where I think you could pair it with a lot of different foods. Again, the carbonation and that just light enough, just enough body, like I said, gives it a little versatility, but it's more. It's more than just a straight European lager. You get a slight bit of toffee from the malt. Not a lot of hops. It's got a clean finish, just a slight hint of bitterness in the back, but in no way is this hoppy at all. But just nice, well-balanced beer with a little bit of more maltiness than a traditional European lager. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.